Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert Camo, the Fantasy Football Counselor. Got a special Sunday episode here for you. Going to talk about the best fantasy football player on each team. You're going to go over all 32 teams and tell you who I think is going to be the top fantasy producer on each team. Now, this is a little tough because some teams have a great quarterback. They have a great wide receiver. Who's the best player on the team fantasy-wise? We're going to have some fun here, go over, discuss, and the reasoning on why that is. So, exciting episode here for you. Best fantasy football player 2021 on each team. Right now, ready to roll into it. Before we do, though, head on over to manscaped.com. Use promo code SHOWERLINE. Get yourself a Lawnmower 3.0. Great pricing if you use the promo code SHOWERLINE. Great pricing anyway, but Shower Lion, like, you know, a lion taking a shower, Shower Lion saves you 20% on your purchase. They got the brand new Lawnmower 4.0, which is behind me. You don't have to worry about nicks and cuts as much now because it's got that skin-safe technology, guys. So make sure you guys are properly groomed at manscaped.com. Use promo code SHOWERLION. You guys will be very happy, and you're going to save 20%, okay? Secondly, if you have not got it, guys, draft kits are dead. Get the draft solution at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. I've also linked it here below. You guys are going to absolutely love 16-round draft solution. The first ever only video training, all the optimal players, sleepers, breakouts, when to draft them, everything, guys. Mock drafts laid out for you. And I'm going to be updating this thing up until the season starts, about a day before the season starts. Everything you need, guys, a one-time payment for the season. And I price it so everybody can get it. And if you guys get it now, I'm going to enter you for a draw to be in the Listeners League, 12-person, 1-point PPR, hosted by myself for a $500 cash prize. So it's worth it. It's a win-win. And you guys got to get 16 rounds right now. You'll absolutely love it, okay? Link in the bio here below here, link in the bio on my Instagram as well, or thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. All right, guys, smash thumbs up, and in the comments, let me know. I'd love to get some feedback, make this super interactive, guys. I'm all about making this interactive, so I like when you guys participate. Why? Because genuinely, obviously, it helps the algorithm here on the video. That's number one. But number two, I genuinely want to hear your feedback. Love to hear from you guys. From day one, I've always wanted to make my channel interactive and just be one of the guys, just like you guys, which I am. It's just that I just deliver this fantasy advice to you guys. I live and breathe this. That's the only difference between you and I, is that I've been grinding for 6 years just studying fantasy football. So I live and breathe this. I've been very successful at it, helping people crush their leagues. But your opinion does matter to me. You guys matter to me. So in the comments below, make sure you guys leave a comment and, of course, leave a thumbs up. All right. So the first one here, let's start off with Arizona. Let's work our way down all the way to the end to Washington, those teams. So let's go over the best player from each team. Now, just because I say they're the best player on each team does not mean I will personally draft them, because let me make this a disclaimer here. So hold on. Well, let's stop here. Time out. I've never had to say this before, but literally, if I say a player is good, maybe it's based on their ADP. So if I say, for example, I like Javian Hawkins. He's the best fantasy player on Atlanta. You're like, who's Javian Hawkins? Well, I can get him for free or the last pick, and I like that player based on ADP. I may not spend a 4th, 5th round pick on Mike Davis, for example. This is just an example, okay? So again, it's kind of the player that I like based on ADP, the best player. Now, again, there's a player on that team that could outperform that player, right? But this is the player I like based on ADP, and I think will produce on a high level, and you get him for the best bang for your buck and will perform well. So Arizona Cardinals, let's go. Kyler Murray, he's got a lot of weapons. They brought in Rondale Moore. They drafted him, Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins. You're almost tempted to go Kyler Murray as the best fantasy player out of Arizona, but you're going to pay a high price for him, and you're going to also pay a high price for DeAndre Hopkins. But if I had to choose who the best player is, I got to go with DeAndre Hopkins here. I mean, he's been consistent year in, year out. He's a fantasy stud. Will I pay that for him? Will I draft DeAndre Hopkins at the end of first round? Probably not. I'm going to say a hell no to me. But if you're looking at the best fantasy player on this team, I've got to go with DeAndre Hopkins. Moving on to the Atlanta Falcons here, based on value, the best fantasy football player this year has to be Matt Ryan. Now, at the time of this recording, end of May, there is talk about Julio getting traded. He's going to get shipped off. And I don't know if Mike Davis is going to be the guy as starter, right? Looking at it theoretically, if Julio Jones gets shipped off, Calvin Ridley has a huge spike, right? But again, you're going to have to pay a huge price. He's a top 10 wide receiver. Although I definitely see the ceiling and I'm excited. I'm also excited about Kyle Pitts. So there's a lot of fantasy relevance here. And like I said earlier, Javian Hawkins is a steal later. But if I had to choose based on value, bang for your buck, and a guy that's going to be a top producer, fantasy points wise, I got to go here with Matt Ryan. I can get him as my quarterback too. After about the 7th or 8th round as my quarterback to back him up, and he's got top 5, top 10 potential. If you look at last year, this guy finished 12th, guys, 12th amongst quarterbacks, having a downwards year with Julio hurt for most of the season. Now you can make an argument, well, Joe, Julio's going to be gone. A lot of Matt Ryan's, success is because of Julio. I understand that, but I think they're going to have enough tools to cover him, including Kyle Pitts, who also acts as a receiver and is going to, be great this year potentially. Okay. And I know rookie tight ends don't do well, but hey, at the end of the day, I think he's going to get a ton of volume with Julio being shipped off. Okay. Next guy here, next team here, Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, obviously a good option. Dobbins, I'm a little suspect on him. Now, I'm going to be doing a full depth chart episode here. It's going to dive into the depth chart, whether I draft or not. So make sure you guys are subscribed. If you haven't clicked subscribe, make sure you do that. This is going up and above the mainstream consensus consensus rankings that do not help you win your leagues, okay? So I'm not going to deep dive too much into the depth charts and volume of too many players. I'm just picking the best fantasy player. And for here, based on value, I know you'd have to pay a lot for the tight end. I don't really pay high for tight ends. I'd rather have maybe Hawkinson, which I think his ADP is going to be pretty high, 4th, 5th round. But Mark Andrews, I think, is the best player here. Now, again, there is rumor that maybe Julio ends up here, whatever. But at the end of the day, I think Mark Andrews is the best fantasy player on the Ravens. Moving on to the Buffalo Bills, again, I could dive into Zach Moss. I'm not excited about in that slew of terrible running backs there, Devin Singletary. The best fantasy player for the Buffalo Bills. Will I pay it? No, but Stephon Diggs, I think he's super hungry, super excited to succeed. If I am getting a wide receiver in the first round, it's going to be Stephon Diggs, but I'm not. I'm going robust RB, but Stephon Diggs. And again, you can make a case for Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs is the best fantasy player on that team. Again, debate me in the comments. If you think Josh Allen is a lot better and he's the best fantasy player on the team, debate it. I mean, that could be a coin toss either way. I'm leaning a little bit more towards Diggs, but obviously Allen's a stud, very high ADP as well. Carolina Panthers, the best guy here. It's a bit of a mess. I think DJ Moore last year was a bit of a waste of a 3rd round pick. He's dropped down to the 5th round. Not bad. Robbie Anderson you get for free. Technically, he is, arguably the best player there for fantasy. I'm going to go with Robbie Anderson based on value. Chuba Hubbard, Christian McCaffrey. Actually, sorry. I can't. Christian McCaffrey is the best player fantasy, but on value, it's Robbie Anderson. So I take that back. Christian McCaffrey is the best player here on the Carolina Panthers. I totally overlooked him, obviously, because I'm not drafting him coming off injury. He likes modeling a lot. Did I avoid Christian McCaffrey there? Yes, I did. But Christian McCaffrey, obviously the best player here. There's no debate. But I think Robbie Anderson has some great value later on. Chicago Bears here, best player fantasy-wise. I've got to go with David Montgomery here. That's an easy one for me. You could make a case for Darryl Mooney to step up this year, Allen Robinson, but I'm going to go with David Montgomery. Cincinnati Bengals, best player here. I got to go with the upside of Jamar Chase. I think there's a ton of upside. Arguably could be the best receiver there. Now, it depends on who Burrow gravitates to. He does have that chemistry from last year based with Higgins. But again, Burrow and Jamar Chase, that connection in the NFL could be exciting as well. I'm going to go with Jamar Chase here. Mixon doesn't excite me. I understand he technically could be a workhorse this year with an improved O-line and better offensive weapons all around. But again, I'm going to go ahead and say Jamar Chase has the highest ceiling and could potentially be the best player here fantasy-wise. So a lot of this, guys, is who is the best player, but a lot of this is also predictive. I'm predicting the best player as well, which makes it a lot more fun, right? You got to anticipate, and when you're anticipating and taking some shots here at some guys that have that upside, you're getting them for value because a lot of people will be sleeping on them, okay? Now, this could be a fantasy football sleepers episode, but it's not, okay? We're looking for the best fantasy player on that team. Cleveland Browns, this is interesting because for years, everybody thought it was Odell. I don't like Odell. Years to wow us, we're not wowed. The biggest bust in fantasy football history, busted 4 years in a row, and he's still being drafted in the 5th round. He was drafted in the 1st round 3 years in a row. Last year, drafted in the 3rd round. So for pretty much 4 years, he was a top 3 pick in the first 3 rounds. He was being drafted. This year, he's dropped to the 5th round. Finally, the guy is garbage. He's not a good player. So who is the best player? You can make a debate that it's Nick Chubb, but Nick Chubb got hurt last year. Kareem Hunt outscored him. Always better value. Kareem Hunt is the best fantasy football player on the Cleveland Browns simply because he outscored Nick Chubb 2 years in a row in PPR. Yes, injuries count, and I'm not paying the Nick Chubb price tag at the end of the first round. So Kareem Hunt technically is the best bang for your buck, best fantasy player. It's proven. Look back at the history, right? I'm just saying it how it is. I can get him for volume. Dallas Cowboys, best fantasy player here. This is pretty easy for me. I'm going to go with Zeke Elliott without a doubt. He was hindered last year and only held to 244 attempts, but that should go up this year, predicated on a healthy Dak Prescott and just with them needing to run the ball a lot more for them to succeed. Right now, they've got some amazing offensive weapons with Amari Cooper, the young CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. But again, Zeke Elliott, and you could make a case for Dak Prescott as well. When you look at the wide receivers, you're looking at a 3-headed monster with equal and possible equal distribution and target distribution, with Amari Cooper peaking at around 120 attempts. That's not enough to make him a wide receiver 1. When you got 3 guys equally as good, I'm going to go with Zeke Elliott as the best player. Moving on to the Broncos, very appealing here. There's a ton of upside with Javonte Williams. I love him this year, but I think Courtland Sutton could be the best player here for fantasy for these guys. Wide receiver 1, amazing value in drafts this year. I talk about that in 16 rounds. Detroit Lions. I mean, a lot of people liking DeAndre Swift, but Todd Gurley went for a visit. Jamal Williams, they're saying that he's going to start. It's a disgusting committee there for fantasy, just disgusting. I'm going to say the best fantasy player here for me this year is TJ Hawkinson, primed for a good season, and the sleeper is Amon-Ra St. Brown, rookie coming out here. And again, I think Hawkinson, predicated on the fact that there is no wide receivers, is the best player here for fantasy. Green Bay Packers, it seems pretty obvious that Devontae Adams is the guy. Some drama with Aaron Rodgers this year. There will be a decline this year with Devontae Adams, but no denying the best fantasy player on the Packers. Houston Texans, it's just a disaster here at wide receiver. We don't know who the wide receiver 1 is. David Johnson's been absolute garbage. I mean, I can't say he was garbage considering he was drafted in the 4th round last year and outdid the Sheep's Clyde Edwards-Helaire in fantasy points last year. But again, when you look at this, Philip Lindsay, Mark Ingram, David Johnson, it's a disaster of a committee. Staying away from that. The best fantasy player here, if he plays, is going to be Deshaun Watson. But again, I'm probably staying away from this entire offense. Stay tuned to the depth charts as I dive in more into this one. The Indianapolis Colts, I'm going to say Michael Pittman is going to be really a huge sleeper here, but I got to go with Jonathan Taylor as the best fantasy player here on the Colts. Don't be surprised if Carson Wentz has a good season as well. Jacksonville Jaguars, the best player here could potentially be Trevor Lawrence, although there is some guys I like on this team. The Chiefs, obviously Pat Mahomes. Los Angeles Chargers, absolutely loving and man-crushing. Justin Herbert this year is going to be my favorite. He's going to be my favorite player on the Chargers and probably the top fantasy producer on this team. Love the upside, love the youth, love the talent, and I love the fact that I can get this guy in around the 5th round and do not have to pay for a Josh Allen or someone like that early. Get my robust RBs, get an ace quarterback, and still secure myself an ace quarterback of Justin Herbert and back him up with a Ryan. It's going to be gravy train this year, guys, for succeeding, okay? Now, there's a ton of other backups, and I explained that in 16 rounds as well. So Chargers, Justin Herbert, best player. Los Angeles Rams, I'm going to go with Cam Akers. Love the talent, love the opportunity. Primed for a good season. I'm going to go with him. And there's a couple other players I like, but we're going to keep it there. Vegas Raiders, got to be Josh Jacobs here, as much as I dislike him. And the boxing match didn't happen. Trust me, as much as I wanted to. He said he wanted to box me, and then he blocked me. What a coward. But Josh Jacobs, even though he hates your fantasy football team, has to be the best player fantasy-wise here. You could make a debate for Darren Waller as well. You're almost tempted to Darren Waller as a guy because they don't have receivers either. Henry Ruggs step up this year, but that's a question mark. I dislike Josh Jacobs. Darren Waller is the best fantasy player on the Raiders. Let's move on here. Why do I dislike him? Well, last year, if you guys remember what Jacobs did, he was slated to start a game. He told all fantasy players he's sitting that game, ended up starting, and he said, F your fantasy teams is what Josh Jacobs said. There's no respect for the fantasy community coming from Josh Jacobs, so there should be no respect going back out to Josh Jacobs from the fantasy community. I'm staying away from Josh Jacobs. I mean, if I can get him for the 4th, 5th round as my RB3-4, maybe, because I think he's going to get the volume and Kenny Drake behind him is not that good. It's tough. I think they're going to run him. I think he's going to do well, but I got to get him for good value. So I'm going to go with Darren Waller here, although I think Jacobs is going to have a decent season. Miami Dolphins. This is an exciting team with a ton of upside. If he gets a start, which I think he should, Tua Tagovailoa should be the best player fantasy-wise here on the Dolphins. Minnesota Vikings, there's no debate here. It's got to be Dalvin Cook if he's healthy, but I do think he is due for an injury, having 2 Cinderella seasons 2 years in a row. I'm not sold on Dalvin Cook being the guy. It's going to be very interesting to see how he plays this year. Is he going to continue and carry 350-plus attempts? I don't see it. I really don't. So I'm going to go ahead and probably stay away from Cook. Predicated on the fact that he's just due for a decline season, coming off, 2 Cinderella seasons, and he still hasn't finished a full season. He is just, I still don't trust him. And it's still got to be him. Second has to be Jefferson on paper, but don't be surprised if Thielen steps up and possibly surpasses Jefferson this season, okay? Don't be surprised. Patriots, I'm staying away from this entire team. If I had to choose a player here for fantasy, it's got to be whatever quarterback is starting. Cam Newton, Mac Jones, if he gets a start. Other than that, do not trust this offense. The Saints, Alvin Kamara, clearly the best guy here. But again, now you're dealing with Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, who's going to hoard some of that goal line work. So again, it's got to be Alvin Kamara for me. Michael Thomas, people are sleeping on him a little bit this year. But if Winston gets a start, there could be a lot of volume going that way. But I got to go Kamara. Giants, this is easy. Saquon Barkley, very easy. Should get the volume. There's nobody behind him that's going to take that. New York Giants, Saquon Barkley, best fantasy player. New York Jets, this is interesting here. Very interesting, because Zach Wilson, young rookie quarterback, he could blow up and have a great season. Michael Carter, slated as the starter rookie, could absolutely tear it up as well. And I also like Elijah Moore. Best fantasy player here, we don't know. Coin toss, I'm going to bank on Michael Carter getting the volume and being the guy, but do not be surprised if a wide receiver like Elijah Moore steps up for the New York Jets. But again, value here with some upside for some of these guys on the team. Eagles, again, there's talk that Jalen Hurts might not start. It's going to be a quarterback competition. I'm assuming he does. He gets going. He could be the best fantasy guy here. Devontae Smith, predicated he gets the volume, could be special as well. But I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts if he gets the volume and gets the start and he secures it, because I'm not sold on him for a guy who's only thrown 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in the league. Not sold. Pittsburgh Steelers, easy one for me. Najee Harris, he's going to get the volume. Not sold on McFarland or Snell coming in to steal much from him. Najee Harris, clear cut, the best fantasy player on the Steelers this year. Seattle Seahawks, they're always flirting with a wide receiver, trying to screw up the DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett connection. We've heard Russell Wilson has always wanted AB there and other guys. At the time of this recording, they are flirting with Julio Jones. So I'm not really sold on Metcalf and Lockett, and then Chris Carson's, they're always getting hurt. I'm going to go with Russell Wilson as the best fantasy player here. San Francisco 49ers, again, coin toss, a lot of stuff up in the air here. You could go Debo, Brandon Ayuk, a lot of guys here that could emerge. But the best fantasy player here, if he gets the volume, could be Raheem Mostert, but injuries always linger there. There's a couple sleepers here, Trey Sermon, that type of thing. This is a question mark, but I'm not paying it, but George Kittle, obviously the best player here for fantasy. But is Trey Lance going to gravitate to him? That's a big question mark. But final answer, George Kittle here. 3 more teams to go here. Make sure you guys do subscribe, smash thumbs up, comment below who you guys think is the best player on the team. Was I wrong on some of these guys? Let me know. Love to get your feedback and get 16 rounds, guys, okay? Buccaneers, best player here, I'm going to go with Tom Brady. Tennessee Titans, Derrick Henry. Washington football team, it's a toss-up between Antonio Gibson and McLaurin. I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin here as the best fantasy player. So there you have it, guys. The best fantasy player from each NFL team for fantasy football 2021. Laying it out now. I do a depth chart episode where I dive into all of these players, the depth chart, who I like, who I don't like, who I draft, who not to draft. Tons of excitement. I can't wait for that episode to come out. But again, guys, smash thumbs up and get 16 rounds. All the answers in one spot. You'll be very happy, guys. Draft kits are dead. And manscaped.com, promo code ShowerLion. I'm out, guys. I appreciate you being here. Fantasy football is almost here, and we'll talk soon. I'm out.